Hello guys, welcome to H2O, the A to Z of chemistry. I'm Dr. Ritu Johar, your educator for this course on general organic chemistry, and I hope you are enjoying this course with me. So today we will be beginning with general organic chemistry part 2, lecture 1. Now what do I mean by part 2 and what was in part 1? Well, in part 1 we have had 17 lectures so far, and in these 17 lectures what we have discussed is what is organic chemistry, moving on to what are organic compounds, the representation of organic compounds, the hybridization, and then a detailed discussion on the nomenclature of organic compounds. So in case you have any doubts related to those topics, you can please go back to those lectures and watch them as well and have your doubts cleared. Alright, so now in this lecture, we will be starting a detailed discussion on isomerism, which is again going to be a very important topic for you people. We are going to put very detailed lectures for you people so that you have a thorough understanding of the topic. And one thing more, if you look at the NCERT textbook, what you will be finding is that the topic has been discussed at several places. In the principles and techniques of organic chemistry, there is something discussed. Then moving further on to the chapter of hydrocarbons, again, some part of isomerism will be discussed. And then something in 12th also. So what we will be doing is we will be putting all the lectures together wherever the topic of isomerism is coming, so you can just learn it from this complete course on isomerism, right? So let us begin our learning. It's going to be very important, so please do not miss any lecture. That is my only request to you people. All right, so let us begin with the learning now. So let us start the learning today with the understanding of the term. First of all, what is isomerism? And for this we will have to go back to lecture 1 from our this course only, that is general organic chemistry, where you learned what is organic chemistry, what are organic compounds, and all that basic information, right? So there I hope you all remember that organic compounds, you learned that initially it was believed that we can obtain them only from living organisms. And there was a Swedish chemist, Berzelius, who proposed the vital force theory in the year 1815. And he said that organic compounds, they are produced only under the influence of some mysterious force existing in the living organism. So we could get organic compounds only from living organisms. There was one student of his who proved his teacher wrong. All right. And the student was Friedrich Wöhler, right? So he was a German chemist, but he had gone to Berzelius as a student and he was working with him when in the year 1828 he synthesized urea from ammonium cyanate, which was an inorganic compound. All right, so the reaction already you have learned that this is NH4CNO, which is ammonium cyanate. On heating, this forms NH2CONH2, which is urea. Now, why are we talking about all this? We are talking about all this because Berzelius was very happy that his student had proved him wrong, The teachers, they always very feel proud when their students outshine them, and it is really a moment of pride for the teachers. So one day you all people are going to grow big than me also, and I'm also going to feel so proud of you. But the only thing is that you have to tell me that Waller was living with Berzelius and you are not living with me, and we are not even in contact with each other. So please do join me on Facebook at H2O Chemistry so that we can remain in contact and we can know each other, and we can always come to know what you people are always doing. All right, so that is one thing. But now, what did Berzelius see from what Wohler had done? So what he saw was that there was similarity in these two compounds, ammonium cyanate and urea. Now, what is the similarity between them? This is an inorganic compound, this is an organic compound. How can there be some similarity in them? Well, there is a big similarity in them. And that big similarity is if you look at the atoms composing these two elements. If you look at, you can see that there is one nitrogen, there is two nitrogen in this compound. There are two nitrogens in this compound. There are four hydrogen, 2 plus 2, 4 hydrogen. There is one carbon, there is one carbon, there is one oxygen, there is one oxygen. So what this means is both of these compounds, they have a general formula CH4N2O. Both of them, they are composed of the same atoms in the same ratio. All right. So from this, it was Berzelius. He coined a new term, and the new term for these two compounds he said was isomer. Now, what does isomer mean? So isomer, he derived it from two Greek words. One was eos, that means same, and the other was meros, that is parts. Iso, same, and mer means parts, same parts. So these two compounds, they were made up of same parts. They were made up of same type of atoms, same number, so same constitution. So this is how the term isomer and isomerism, this came into being. So now let us have a definition of this. So isomerism, this was a term which was coined by Berzelius, and you can say along with him his student Waller. And the term means the phenomenon of existence of two or more compounds possessing the same molecular formula but different properties. Alright, so isomerism, this is the phenomenon where we will be having two or more than two compounds. They will be having the same molecular formula, but their properties, they are going to be different. Either they are the physical properties which are going to be different, or the chemical properties which are going to be different, or both of them, they can be different. So such a phenomenon, this is called as isomerism or isomorphism. Okay, and such compounds, they are called as isomers and isomorphs. So ammonium cyanide and urea, they are isomers. Let us see one more example. If you look at this compound CH3NO2, and I tell you that this compound has two isomers, so just looking at the formula itself, you cannot distinguish that they are going to be two compounds which can be this different in nature, just looking in the formula, right? So if I have a packet on which I have written CH3NO2, and I have another packet on which I have written CH3NO2, you will not be able to identify that these two are different things. But well, if you open that packet, what you will be seeing is one structure is like this, CH3NO2, and the other structure which I can see is like this. So aren't these two structures entirely different? Here the carbon is directly attached to the nitrogen of the NO2 group, and here the carbon, this is directly attached to the oxygen of the NO2 group. Both of them, they have a CH3 and NO2, but the point of joining of the two is going to be different. And that is why we have two compounds. The first one is nitromethane and the second one is methyl nitrite. Okay, and if you look at the properties of them, we find nitromethane to be a liquid. The boiling point of this is 101 degrees Celsius, and this is used as a fuel for race cars. Whereas methyl nitrite, this is a gas. The boiling point is minus 12 degrees Celsius, and this causes dilatation of the blood vessels when inhaled. So entirely two different products if you are looking at the properties, if you are looking at the structure, but the molecular formula, this was the same, and hence they are called as isomers. And we have a very good example from our daily life also, which can help you understand isomerism better or the isomers better, and they are the identical twins. I hope you have all seen certain movies which have been coming up on the Hindi cinema like Ram or Sham, Sita Geeta, Chalbaz, and the most famous Angur, where there was Sanjeev Kumar in a double role, and two brothers who are different from each other, but facially they are yes the same. And then there was Golmaal, which was again a very interesting movie. One person posing like two people, and those two people, they had different behavior, right? So facially they were the same, but they were having different behavior, and we can call our compounds to be those identical twins only. So they are looking to be the same, but they are having different behavior, they are having different property, and such compounds we call them as isomers. Now one more thing, when we are saying about that these isomers, they have the same molecular formula, there is one thing that you should remember. What else can be same for these compounds? I have not written them down, but well, you can easily understand that if they have the same molecular formula, they will be having the same molecular mass as well, right? This is something very obvious. Do I have to tell you that? Well, I do not have to tell you that, but there are certain times questions coming and you can get confused at that time that yeah, we had just learned that the molecular formula was the same. Yes, molecular mass, obviously, you will come to know. And then we have the empirical formula. Alright, so if the molecular formula is the same, they have the same number of atoms in the same composition, so obviously the molecular and the empirical formula for these two compounds, that will be the same. And if the molecular mass is the same, the empirical mass is also going to be the same, right? So this is also same. One more thing that can be same is vapor density. I hope you all remember. We have done this in the course, some basic concepts, what is vapor density, and what we have learnt over there is that molecular mass, if we divide that by 2, we get vapor density. So if molecular mass is the same and we are dividing it by the same constant 2, well, the vapor density will also come up to be the same. Alright, so the vapor density is also the same. Another one thing which is going to be same for them is known as the double bond equivalent. Okay, now what is this double bond equivalent is something that I will be telling you somewhere later in this course on isomerism, but just remember that the double bond equivalent is also going to be the same for these. So we are essentially having 6 things which are same for the isomers. It is not only the molecular formula which is the same, it is the molecular formula, the molecular mass, the empirical formula, the empirical mass, the vapor density, and the double bond equivalent, which will be the same for these compounds. Okay, so I hope you are all having a paper and pen with them, and you all are writing down whatever extra things also I am telling you on the way, right? So you should make proper notes so that you can revise them well. Obviously you're not going to open up every time a video again, listen to the lecture, so you should have your notes. Once understood, you have to revise those notes, right? So now let us move on further. So the next we have is the classification of isomerism, and we have two broad classes for isomerism. One is structural isomerism and the other is stereoisomerism. Now what is the difference between the two? Well, one is the structural constitution. For example, I'm not talking about isomers, I'm talking about what do we mean by a structure, right? So we have a ethene molecule. In this you can see that on pen and paper, how are you going to draw it? That there are two carbons joined to each other by a double bond, and these two carbons, they are joined to each side a hydrogen by a single bond. So this is how you draw a ethene molecule on a piece of paper. But this is a molecule, this is a three-dimensional structure, right? So if you look at the three-dimensional picture of this molecule, this is going to look somewhat like this. So this is a structure and this is its three-dimensional representation in space. Now, when we have certain compounds which are differing in the structure, or you can say the position of the various atoms in the structure, only that is differing, we call that as structural isomerism. But when the structure is the same, the position of the atoms remain the same, but we just move them in space, that they become different compounds, they have different properties, well, then we call that phenomenon to be stereoisomerism. So we will be talking in detail about these two one by one. Do not worry, you will be understanding things better. But this is essentially what is going to mean by structural isomerism and stereoisomerism, and these can be further classified. So isomerism complete classification chart. Now this is in front of you. So isomerism, this is classified into structural isomerism and stereoisomerism. Structural isomerism, this is further classified into 6: chain isomerism, position isomerism, functional isomerism, metamerism, ring chain isomerism, and tautomerism. Alright, so these are the 6 types of structural isomerism. And then we have the stereoisomerism, further classified into configurational isomerism and conformational isomerism. Configurational, it is going to be geometrical and optical isomerism, whereas conformational, this is rotational isomerism and a mean inversion. Alright, so we will be talking about all of these one by one, and in this lecture we will be focusing on these first two types of structural isomerism, that is chain isomerism and position isomerism, and then the rest we will be taking them one by one in the upcoming lectures. So starting first of all with the definition of structural isomerism. So this is also called as constitutional isomerism, and here the compounds, they will be having the same molecular formula but they will be having different structures. So structural isomerism. And what this means to have a different structure is that the atoms, they are going to be linked to one another differently. All right, and that is why we call it as constitutional isomerism. The constitution is different. The way in which the atoms, they are arranged with respect to one another, that is going to be different. So the first in this, we have chain isomerism. So you already studied that there are 6 types that we will be discussing one of them. And the first is chain isomerism. So chain isomerism, this is also called as skeletal or nuclear isomerism. So what this means is that you all know that what is a skeleton. For our body, the skeletal, this is made up of the bones, right? So this gives a framework to the body. So similarly, in an organic compound, what is that gives the framework to the carbon compound? Well, that is going to be the length of the carbon chain, the longest carbon chain or the parent chain. So that gives a skeleton to the structure of the organic compound. And if that is going to be different, we will be calling it as chain isomerism. So chain isomers, they are going to be 2 or more than 2 compounds which have similar molecular formula but different carbon skeleton. That means there is going to be a difference in the length of the carbon chain, and hence they are called as chain isomers, and the phenomenon is called as chain isomerism. And a very common example which we can have in daily life is, supposedly I have a necklace, right? So this necklace is made up of certain rings. Now, the rings are in such a way that, well, I can adjust them. I can adjust the length of these rings according to the size of my neck. Okay. So what I find is that this chain, this is a bit longer for my neck. So what I do, I remove one of this chain. And what I can do is, when I've removed it and I do not want to just throw it away, I have put it somewhere, just entangle it to my chain. So now again, what you can see is that the number of these chains, they are the same. Right, so these rings, they are the same. Only what I've done is I have removed one ring from here and put it over here. So similarly, we are having the carbon compounds. If we just change the length of the carbon chain, the number of the carbon atoms, that remains the same. We will be calling it as chain isomerism. For example, we have C4H10. So what is this compound? This is butane. Now butane, this has 2 chain isomers. Let us look at them. So first, we can arrange all the 4 carbon atoms in a straight continuous chain. So this is going to be a parent chain of 4 carbons, right? So this is what we know as butane. And if we talk about the common name for this compound, it is going to be N-butane, right? This is a straight chain compound. So we call this as normal butane or N-butane. Now what we can do is that we can shorten the length of this chain. Is it possible? Yes, it is possible. We can shorten it to a 3 carbon chain, and the methyl group that we will be removing from here, we can put it somewhere in the middle over here. All right, so we will be getting this compound. So the compound you have, again, it is 4 carbon compound, 1 2 3 4. The name of this compound is going to be 2-methyl propane. The common name for this is isobutane. So I hope you all know what is N, iso, neo, sec, tert, all of these they mean, because this is something that we've already done when we were discussing the nomenclature, the initial lectures. So lecture number 6, when we started with the nomenclature of alkanes, we have discussed all this. In case you have not watched our lectures, you have not a clear understanding what N, iso, neo, tert, sec they mean, please do watch that lecture. That is going to be really helpful to you throughout your whole of organic chemistry. I will be talking slightly in this lecture as well, but if you want to have a proper clear understanding, do watch that lecture, lecture number 6. All right. uh, when we have isobutane, what do we mean by iso? Well, in the iso, what you can see is this structure is always going to be present, where the second carbon is always going to have a methyl group onto it. Okay, so this is what we know as a iso group. You should be able to identify this whole group that I have circled in red whenever we are going to have an iso compound. So this is what we know as isobutane, because here the structure, you can see that there is a methyl group at position number 2, and we have 4 carbons in the total compound. You have, for the common naming, you have to count the total number of carbons, and then this is a iso structure, so this is called as isobutane. Alright, so we have two chain isomers for butane. If you put the CH3 group at supposedly position number 1, what will you get? Well, if you put it at position number 1, we will be starting the numbering from here. 1 carbon, 2 carbon, 3 carbon and 4 carbon, because that would be the longest chain. So again, it would be similar to butane. So the only two chain isomers possible for butane, they are butane and isobutane. Fine. Now, let us see C5H12, and this has three chain isomers. Try it yourself also, and we will be doing it also. Alright. So you can pause over here and try making the three chain isomers for C5H12, that is pentane, and then look at how we have done it. Now, if you've done it, let us see how we are going to do it now. Alright. So this is the straight chain compound. All 5 carbons are arranged in the straight line. So this is N-pentane. Right. Next, what have we done? We have removed one methyl group and we are going to put it at position number 2. It is possible, right? If you put it at position number 1 from this end or this end, it is going to be the same thing, and it will be the longest continuous chain. Again, it will be N-pentane. So the only position possible is if you break one carbon from the long chain and put it somewhere at this position or this position, and then you're going to put the carbon over here as we have done. It is going to be 2-methyl butane, but if you put it on the other end also, that will be also 2-methyl butane, because you will be starting the numbering from this side. So the IUPAC nomenclature, I hope this is clear to you. So the two structures now you can see is N-pentane, and the second you can see is 2-methyl butane. Again, you can see the structure over here, a methyl group present at position number 2. So this is known as isopentane. The next structure is that we can break one more carbon and make it a 3-carbon chain. And when we are going to break this carbon, what are we going to get? Where are we going to put it? If we are going to put it over here, well, it will be again a 4-carbon chain. If you put it over here, again, this will be a 4-carbon chain. But if you put it over here, well, yes, you are going to have something different, just like this. Right? So this is a 3-carbon chain with 2 methyl groups at position number 2. So this becomes 2,2-dimethyl propane, and the common name for the compound, this is going to be neopentane. So what is the neo structure? A neo structure is when we have at position number 2, 2 methyl groups. For an iso at position number 1, position number 2 we have 1 methyl group, and for neo structure we have 2 methyl groups at position number 2. So this is how you have to remember these. This. Okay, I hope this is clear. So the number of chain isomers for pentane, this is going to be 3. So now please do remember that chain isomerism, this is going to be exhibited by only those compounds in which the branching is going to be possible, where we can alter the length of the chain. If the length of the chain that is going to remain the same in two compounds, that is not going to be chain isomerism, that is going to be some different kind of isomerism. Chain isomerism is only going to be exhibited where the two compounds or more than two compounds, they are differing in the number of carbons in the parent. Alright, so what you have to remember again further is that if you have a compound which has having carbons less than 4, there the branching is not possible, so they will not be showing chain isomerism. For example, if we have methane, so methane is just one carbon. Where are you going to break a carbon chain and where are you going to put another carbon? There is just one carbon, so this compound, this cannot show chain isomerism. Similarly, if we have ethane, now in ethane, let us say we have two bonds, so we have two carbons, so we can remove this carbon. Okay, and when I have removed this carbon, where I'm going to put another carbon? Okay, I can put it over here. So this is going to be again a 2-carbon chain. If I put it over here, again it will be a 2-carbon chain, and if I put it above, it will be again a 2-carbon chain. So my longest continuous chain, this remains the same, right? Even ethane, this is not going to show chain isomerism. Similarly, if we talk about now propane, so propane is 3 carbons, right? Now again we can remove one carbon. Okay, let us do now this way. So we have removed this carbon and we have to put it somewhere else so that we can make a chain. So where are we going to do that? Let us do it at this position. Now the longest continuous chain will become this one, right? So carbon number 1, carbon number 2, carbon number 3. Again we have propane, and similarly if you are going to put it at this position, then also it is going to be the same. So we will not be getting any difference in the chain number. So we will not be having any chain isomerism where we have carbons less than 4. Alright. Now the next what we have is, let us see one more example. We have C4H8. Now C4H8 is butene, and it is also going to have two chain isomers. Let us see those isomers now. So we have first isomer, again this is 4 carbons. So let us draw a longest chain possible for this, and because there's a double bond present, I have put it at position number 1. So the name of the compound, this is but1ene, and the common name for this is butylene, right? So now which is the next isomer which is possible? And I know what you people can think of. Well, we can again make one carbon chain of 4, and we can put the bond at position number 2. So this is going to be but2ene. But are these two chain isomers? Well, they are not, because both of them, they have 4 carbon parent chain, right? So the length of the longest continuous chain is same in both the compounds. So these two are not chain isomers. For chain isomerism, the prerequisite is that the length of the carbon chain, this should be different, and because they do not have the length of the carbon chain to be different, so these are not chain isomers. So what are these? Well, these are position isomers. We will be just now seeing the definition also for these, but what is happening is that the position of the double bond is different in the two compounds. So this is what we call as position isomerism. All right. So let us see now which is going to be the chain isomer of but1ine. So what we can do is we can have to alter the length of the carbon chain. Instead of 4, let us have 3 carbons, and the carbon which we have removed, we have put it at position number 2. Why I have not put it at position number 1? Because again, if I put it at position number 1 or this end, either of the two terminal ends, then it will again become a single continuous chain, right? So we have to put it at position number 2. The name of the compound, this is going to be carbon number 1, carbon number 2, carbon number 3. So this is 2-methyl propene, and the common name for this compound is isobutylene. Again, you can see that we have a iso structure present over here, right? So these two now, they are chain isomers because a difference we can see in the number of carbons in the two chains, right? Now let us see one more example. We have C4H9OH. Again, you can see now, you can try it yourself also, that this compound, this is going to have two chain isomers. What are those? Well, again, we are going to draw a carbon chain of 4 carbons. Okay, we have put a OH group at position number 1. Yes, we can put it at position number 2, but again, that is going to be a difference in the position of the functional group. So that is also going to be called as position isomerism. Alright, so butane 1 all and butane 2 all, both of them, they will be having a longest continuous chain of 4 carbons. So that is not going to be chain isomerism. The common name of this compound is N-butyl alcohol. So I hope you all know what is N-butyl alcohol. I will just now quickly revise that also with you, but I would really appreciate if you watch that lecture number 6 again, because there we have discussed it step by step in lot many details, and I do not want to waste your time again speaking everything once again. Okay. So the next way in which we can draw this is that we have, rather than a 4 carbon chain, we have drawn a 3 carbon chain, and at again position number 2 there is a methyl group, so this becomes 2-methyl propane 1 all, and this is again isobutyl alcohol. We have a 4 carbon compound in which we can see there is a methyl group which is present at position number 2. Position number 2, what I am pertaining over here is that we have it at one end. Alright, the OH group which is present, this is present to entirely different end. Always you will be seeing in such compounds that this structure is always going to be present. Alright. So this is isobutyl alcohol and this is N-butyl alcohol, and these are the two chain isomers for the molecular formula C4H9OH. Alright. So now the next thing that we will be seeing is the definition for position isomerism. So position isomerism, how do we define it? So the compounds with the same molecular formula which represents two or more compounds which differ in the position of a substituent, a double bond or a triple bond or functional groups, this is going to be called as position isomerism. Alright. For example, propane 1-ol and propane 2-ol, they are differing in the position of the OH group. So this is going to be position isomerism, right? So these two, they are position isomers of each other. Similarly, but1-ene and but2-ene, they are the position isomers because here the position of the double bond, this is varying. Right. Next, let us see these aromatic compounds now. So we have two chlorines at different positions in these three structures, right? So this is 1,2-dichlorobenzene or ortho-dichlorobenzene. This is 1,3-dichlorobenzene or meta-dichlorobenzene, and this is 1,4-dichlorobenzene or para-dichlorobenzene. So we can see over here that we have a difference in the position of the substituents, right? So the base structure, this is the same. We have a same carbon uh, uh, cyclic ring that is of a 6 carbon. The only difference is in the position of the substituent. So this is also called as position isomerism. Alright, so these three, they are the position isomers of each other. So the next, let us learn the procedure for writing the structural isomers for a compound. And when I'm referring to now structural isomers, here we are going to include chain isomers as well as position isomers, because that is the only two we have learned so far. In the coming up lectures, we will be seeing other types of structural isomers. So we will be taking those examples where the structural isomers will be including those also. Alright, so now we are going to write the structural isomers, for example, for C7H16. So this is what? This is heptane, right? So this is heptane, and when we are going to write the structural isomers, first of all, we will be writing the longest chain structure of carbon atoms as in the diagram, in the figure you can see over here. So we are going to have 7 carbons. So we will be all putting them in one continuous chain, and the name of the compound, the common name of the compound is going to be N-heptane, right? So N stands for normal, or when all the carbons, they are in a straight chain. There is no substituent group present, so this is going to be N-heptane. All right. Now the next step, we are going to write an isomer. So we are going to decrease the length of the chain. So we will be drawing a continuous chain of 6 carbons and 1 carbon going. That means we will be having an extra methyl group, and we will be putting this methyl group at different positions to draw all the possible structures, but they should be the non-terminal positions. Why non-terminal? Because if you remove 1 carbon from here, all right, and you put it over here, so what is this again? The longest continuous chain length remains the same. Now the chain becomes this way, right? So this will again be N-heptane only, so there is no difference. So whenever you are going to put up now that methyl group, you will be putting it at non-terminal position. So now let us see hexane. So we have this 6 carbon longest continuous chain, and we have put the methyl group at position number 2. So the IUPAC name of the compound, this becomes 2-methyl hexane. But if you look at again this compound, you can see that an iso structure is present over here. So we can call this compound as isoheptane also. So the common name is going to be isoheptane because we have position number 2, a methyl group, right? So now let us see one more structure. Now we have moved from position number 2 to position number 3. So this becomes 3-methyl hexane. Again, this is going to be an isomer of this compound, this structure, right? Now one more thing, if we move on to position number 4, when we move to position number 4, let me make that now. Well, if we move to position number 4, is this 4-methyl hexane? No, this is not, because then we will be starting from numbering from this end, because we have to give a lower number to the substituent, right? So all your nomenclature now you are putting into use, right? So I hope you are understanding why did we learn the nomenclature. So everywhere you're going to use that concepts that you are going to learn in general organic chemistry. Okay, so this compound, if we are going to put at this position, this will not be 4-methylhexane. This is also going to be 3-methylhexane. And if I put my methyl group over here, then it is going to be again 2-methylhexane rather than being 5-methylhexane. Alright, so only two structures which are possible for a methylhexane are going to be these two structures. So far we have drawn three structures. Now another thing which is very interesting over here, this and this, the longest continuous chain, this is 7-carbon chain, this is a 6-carbon chain, this is a 7-carbon chain, this is a 6-carbon chain. So this structure and this structure, they are chain isomers. This structure and this structure, they are chain isomers. What are these two? What are these two? Well, these are going to be position isomers because the longest continuous chain is again a 6-carbon chain, but the position of the substituent, this is varying. Here we have a substituent at position number 2. Here we have a substituent at position number 3. So 2-methylhexane and 3-methylhexane, they are position isomers, whereas these two and these two, they are chain isomers. Right? Now I hope you are getting. So next we are going to move on now to a 5-carbon chain. So 5-carbon chain, we will be having 2 carbons free with us, which we are going to put as substituents. So let us see what all positions they are possible. So we are going to first of all drawing the 2 methyl groups at position number 2. So the name of the compound, this becomes 2,2-dimethylpentane. Now again what you can see in this structure is that we have a 2,2 position for the 2 methyl groups. So this structure, this is called as a neo structure. Right, so at 2,2-dimethyl, that is a neo structure. So in this neo, so the name of the common name for this compound is going to be neoheptane. All right, so I hope now you are understanding things and the concept, this is becoming better. When you started with lecture number 6, well, you were very initial lectures on nomenclature, but now you have done the whole of nomenclature. This is a time when your concepts should become strong. Okay, now instead of 2,2-dimethyl, I can move on to the next position. So this becomes 3,3-dimethylpentane. Right, if I move to the next position, this will be again the same structure as 2,2-dimethylpentane, because we will be starting the numbering from this end. Now what can we do further? Well, we can put a different position to both the methyl groups. So position number 2 for one methyl group and position number 3 for one methyl group. So the name of the compound, 2,3-dimethylpentane. All right, and the next you can see this is a 2,4-dimethylpentane. Okay, so are these only possible structures? Can you think of any more? Well, there is one more structure which the students generally forget, and that structure is that instead of the 2 methyl groups, why not let us put a ethyl group at one position, right? So we have 3-ethyl pentane now. So this is also an isomer. Fine. So what you can see is, now this we have put it at position number 3. Can we put this ethyl group at position number 2? When you're going to put it at position number 2, this will become carbon number 1, carbon number 2, carbon number 3, carbon number 4, 5 and 6 for the ethyl group. So again this will be a hexane. It will not be a pentane. So the only way you can put the ethyl group is at position number 3. So these are the 5 pentane isomers that we can draw for heptane. Alright. Now again, all these isomers, they are going to be what? They are going to be position isomers. So this is a position isomer. We had 2 methyl groups, but they are at different positions. Similarly, this is an isomer and this is also, right? So here, what do we have? Well, these are position isomers, where if we compare this 2,2-dimethylpentane to 2-methylhexane and to N-heptane, these will be the chain isomers. I hope this is clear. Now there is one more structure left when we have a chain of 4 carbons. So let us see this. Till now we have drawn 8 structures, but in total we can draw for heptane 9 structures. So finally, we will be considering a chain of 4 carbon atoms, and when we have a chain of 4 carbon atoms, there are going to be 3 carbons which are going to be attached as side chains. So again, you will be trying all the possible combinations, but what you will find is that there is only one structure that is possible, and that structure is going to be 2,2,3-trimethylbutane. The 3 methyl groups. You can also think of that we can put over here as well a ethyl group and a methyl group, but well, you will find that if you put a ethyl group, for example, let us say you put it at position number 2. All right, so if you put it at position number 2 here, it will be a C2H5. So then the longest continuous chain will be carbon number 1, carbon number 2, carbon number 3, carbon number 4 and carbon number 5 of the ethyl group. So you will be getting a longest continuous chain again of 5 carbon atoms. So this is the only possible structure where we will be having 4 carbon chain, that is 2,2,3 trimethyl butane. So in total we have been able to draw 9 structures as the isomers of C17H16. So let us see complete list now for the all structural isomers of alkanes that we have learned so far. So we have CH4, there is going to be only one isomer, CH4 itself, C2H6 again one, C3H8 again one. So these are the compounds where there is no possibility of making a variation in the chain length. And then from C4H10 you have seen that we draw two structures, C5H12 we drew three structures. We did not draw any structure for C6H14, but yes, you should be able to draw that. Try doing that. This would be a homework for you people, that draw the structural isomers for C6H14. All right. Then C7H16, we've already drawn 9 structures. C8H18, this is a total of 18 structures. 9, 20, this is going to be 35, and C10H22, this is going to be 75 structures. Now you're not going to draw all of them. Okay, it's not important for you people to do that, because you will be never asked that in the examination. At the maximum, you will be having to draw the structures up till heptane. Okay, C7H16. But you should remember all these structures which are possible for these from carbon number 1 to carbon number 10. These can be asked as an MCQ in the examinations, that for C10H22 how many structural isomers they are possible. Generally it is up till C7H16 that a question can come, but still you just remember these three more as how many structural isomers are possible for carbon number 1 to carbon number 10 for the homologous series of alkanes. All right, so this is what is important over here. Now the next thing that we will be learning is the isomers for the alkyl radicals. Now that is also very important for you people to understand. So what we find is that if we look at the structural isomers for the alkyl radicals, the number of the structural isomers, they are going to be more than those found by the corresponding alkane. For example, if we look at butane, C4H10, this has two structural isomers. You've already seen how we draw those two structures. And then if you look at the butyl radical will be found when the butane, this is going to lose one hydrogen. So the general formula is going to be C4H9. So the butyl radical, this forms four structural isomers. Let us look at them first of all. All right. So C4H10, this has two isomers you've already done. One is going to be N-butane and the other is going to be isobutane. And if we draw at the butyl radical now, so C4H9, this has four isomers. It is going to be N-butyl, sec-butyl, isobutyl and tert-butyl radicals. Now how the butane is going to form these four isomers, that is very important for you to understand. So we will be just doing that once again, although this is again what we have previously discussed in lecture number 6, but now this is a better position for, I think, you people to understand this concept in detail. This is going to be very, very important. So let us revise it. I do not mind doing that. All right, so let us do that. So how the alkyl radicals, they are obtained from the corresponding alkane. This is something again that we have done previously in lecture number 6, but I'm going to revise it once again because this is a very important concept that you have to remember always, and this is something that the students, they do not understand very well. So we are going to repeat it again, how we are going to obtain the various alkyl radicals from the corresponding alkane, and the example we are taking is of butane. So we have for butane two isomers, one is N-butane and the other is isobutane. So what you have to look is what are the nature of the carbon atoms present in these alkanes. So what you can see is for N-butane we have two types of carbons. It is a primary carbon and a secondary carbon. Primary carbon is going to be that one which is going to be attached to either no carbon atom or it is going to be attached to only a single carbon atom, as you can see over here. So the secondary carbon is going to be one which is going to be attached on two sides to two carbon atoms. So this is, I hope, all clear to you people. So in N-butane we have two types of carbons and correspondingly we have two types of hydrogen. The hydrogen which is attached to a primary carbon is going to be called as a primary hydrogen, and a secondary carbon it is going to be called as secondary hydrogen. If you remove a primary hydrogen now from N-butane, all right, so what you will be getting is N-butyl radical. Okay, so you just have to remove any of these six hydrogens. The radical that you will be getting is a N-butyl radical. And if you remove a secondary hydrogen, so any of these four hydrogens, if you remove the corresponding alkyl radical, you will be calling is at a 2-butyl radical or a sec-butyl radical. Fine, I hope this is clear. The next we have is isobutane. In isobutane, now we have two types of carbons. One is going to be a primary carbon. So this is a primary carbon. This is a primary carbon. Even this one, this is a primary carbon. And the other type of carbon you can see is a tertiary carbon. This is attached to three carbon atoms on its three sides. So if you remove any of these three hydrogens, you will be getting a isobutyl radical, and if you are going to remove the tertiary hydrogen from here, the radical you will be getting is a tert butyl radical. All right, I hope this is clear. Now one thing which is very important for you people to remember is for the isobutane, if you remove any of these three hydrogens, any of these nine hydrogens, the radical that you will be getting is a isobutyl radical, because in either of the case the iso group this remains intact. But if it is any other carbon, for example, we have pentane. All right, so in pentane I will be drawing the iso structure. So this will be isopentane, right? 5 carbons, position number 2 by the methyl group. So here what you have to remember is that we have this to be the iso group, and this iso group, this should remain intact. If you mark the types of carbons, this will be a primary carbon, this will be a primary carbon, this will be a primary carbon, this will be a secondary carbon, and this will be a tertiary carbon, right? So you have to remove a primary hydrogen to obtain a iso radical also. Fine. But which of these now we are going to remove? Either this or this. Well, so here what you have to remember is the iso group, this has to remain intact. So the primary hydrogen that you will be removing is going to go to the opposite end of the iso group. So whatever is the length of your chain, just let the iso group remain intact, go to the opposite end of the chain, and from that primary carbon remove a hydrogen, you will be getting the corresponding iso radical. Okay, I hope this is clear. Only in case of a propyl radical, so we have N-propane. From this, when you are going to remove a secondary hydrogen, the radical that you will be getting is going to be a iso radical. This is isopropyl group. Okay, only in case of propane, from N-propane you will be getting isopropyl radical by the removal of a secondary hydrogen. In all other cases, just go to the end of the chain which is opposite to the iso group, remove a primary hydrogen from there, the radical that you will be getting will be called as a iso radical. All right, I hope you will remember this because this is going to be very important. And in fact, why is this important is something that you will be just now understanding why I am emphasizing so much on this. Okay, so let us see one now example. So now you have a question. Draw all possible structural isomers with the molecular formula C4H9Cl, and you have to name them. And also you have to identify the chain and the position isomers. Now first of all, what you have to do is you have to look at this compound. This is C4H9Cl. So what this means is if I just take this chlorine out, what I will be left behind is with C4H9, which is what? Which is the butyl radical. All right. So if you now draw all the isomers that you have done for the butyl radical, it is going to be very easy for you to draw all the structural isomers for this compound, right? So we have first of all N-butyl radical. From N-butyl radical, we have the hydrogen replaced from primary carbon, right? So instead of this hydrogen, now if I put a chlorine atom, what I will be getting is N-butyl chloride. Okay, the next structure you can see that we have a secondary butyl radical. From the secondary carbon we have removed one hydrogen, and instead of this, if now I put a chlorine, what I will be getting is a sec butyl chloride. Similarly, the third isomer that we did was the isobutyl radical. From isobutane we got isobutyl radical by removing one primary hydrogen from the end opposite to the iso group. So this is isobutyl radical. We have removed the hydrogen from this position and we will be putting a chlorine at this position. So the structure that we will be getting is isobutyl chloride. The next we have is a tert butyl radical. Now the tert butyl radical, we had removed the tertiary hydrogen, and now we will be replacing that hydrogen with a chlorine. We will be getting a tert butyl chloride. So these are all those chain and position isomers which are possible for this structure. And you look at the other way how we had started learning to draw up all these structural isomers. What we thought was that what we will be doing is we will be starting with a 4 carbon compound, so we will be doing a longest chain possible, right? So we have drawn the 4 carbon chain. Let us look at this now structure, right? So we have a 4 carbon chain. 4 carbon chain, we can put a chlorine at position number 1, we can put a chlorine at position number 2. If you put a chlorine at position number 1, you will be getting N-butyl chloride. If you put it at a position number 2, you will be getting a sec-butyl chloride. Fine. Now, the next thing, you have the changing of the carbon length from 4 to 3. When we have done that, what you will be getting is two positions again to put the chlorine atom. One is over here at position number 1, which can be either end, so it will be position number 1 only, and the other position which you can be putting it is at position number 2. So again what you will be getting is isobutyl chloride and tert butyl chloride. So if you know what are the isomers which are for the alkyl radical, you can just simply write the isomers for this compound. Similarly, if you would have C4H9OH, all right. So the chain and the position isomers for that compound as well are going to be 4 in accordance with the alkyl radicals for the C4H9. I hope you are getting my point, that you have to just know what are the alkyl radicals and you have to just put that position. Now C4H9OH is going to have some other structural isomers as well, which we will be learning in the next lecture. But for now, the chain and the position isomers, I hope now this is clear to you, that if we know the alkyl radicals, we can do that. C4H9OH, similarly we can have C4H9NH2. So similar to this, we will be having the pentyl radical, the hexyl radical. So if you know the number of alkyl radicals which you can draw, and you've already learned how you're going to draw these radicals. You have drawn the alkane, you have marked the primary, secondary, tertiary hydrogens, and you have removed one hydrogen from those positions, and you've got the corresponding alkyl radical. You will not miss any structure this way. All right, I hope this is clear. Now, there is one more thing which I want to tell you over here. First of all, you have to, the part of the question left is you have to identify the chain and the position isomers. Now, when we are going to do that, let us number these compounds as carbon number 1, structure number 1, structure number 2. This is structure number 3 and this is structure number 4. Okay. So if I talk about structure number 1 and structure number 2, what are these two? Both of them, they have 4 carbon chain. Only the position of chlorine atom is differing. So this is going to be a position isomer, right? If we talk about 1 and 3, what will be there? A 4 carbon chain and a 3 carbon chain. So these are going to be position isomers, chain isomers, right? Then we have 1 and 4. Now what are 1 and 4? If you look at both of them, what you will be seeing is that this is a 4 carbon chain, this is a 3 carbon chain. So this is a chain isomer. But now if you look at chlorine position number 1 and you look at chlorine position number 2, so these are position isomers as well, right? So these are both well known knot. Just remember that if you are having a thought whether it is going to be a chain isomer or it is going to be a position isomer or it is both of them. So first thing that you have to remember is that chain and position isomers, they will not be present together in a compound. Okay, either it has to be a chain isomer or it has to be a position isomer. It cannot be both. It cannot be both. Okay. So if it is not both, it has to be one of them. Which one of them? Either it is a chain isomer or it is a position isomer. So here what you have to remember is if you are having a doubt whether it is going to be a chain isomer or a position isomer, always give a priority to the chain isomer. Okay, if the chain length is differing, it is always going to be a chain isomer. It is never going to be a position isomer. That is what you have to remember. All right. First of all, chain and position isomerism, it is not going to be together in two isomers. Okay. You cannot say that 1 and 4, they are both chain as well as position isomers. And the second thing, if you have to choose out of the two, chain and position, it is always going to be a chain isomer. As in 1 and 4, therefore it is going to be what? It will be a chain isomer. Similarly, now you can do for the rest of the structures as well. 2 and 3, this is going to be a 4 carbon and a 3 carbon. So this is going to be what case? It will be a chain isomer. And a 2 and a 4, it is also a 4 and a 3 carbon chain. So it will be also a chain isomer. 3 and 4, they are differing in the position of the uh, substituent. The length of the carbon chain, this is the same. So this 3 and 4, they will be position isomers. All right, I hope this is clear to you people. Now let us look at one more example. So let us conclude this lecture with just one more question which is going to strengthen your topic further. Draw all the possible cyclic isomers with the molecular formula C6H12. Now, first of all, the question says that you have to draw the cyclic isomers. Now, why have I specified cyclic isomers? That is one thing that I want you to tell over here. Alright. So, the general formula for the compound C6H12 is going to be what? It is going to be CnH2n. Okay. So, this is a general formula for a cycloalkane. Along with it, it is also the general formula for an alkene. Right? For an alkane, the general formula is CnH2n. Sorry, it is an A over here, right? So it is a cycloalkane CnH2n. If it is a aliphatic hydrocarbon, if it would have been an alkane, the general formula would have been CnH2n plus 2. For an alkene, it is CnH2n, and for an alkyne, it is CnH2n minus 2. So the along with CnH2n being the general formula for cycloalkane, it is also the general formula for an alkene. So all the isomers that you can make for alkene, they are also going to be the isomers for this compound along with all the cyclic isomers that we will be making. Okay. The difference is that this is a straight chain compound and this is going to be a cyclic compound. All right. Now, there is also going to be one type of structural isomerism which is going to link a cyclic structure with a straight chain structure, and that is called as ring chain isomerism. Ring chain isomerism, that is what we will be doing in the next lecture. Alright, so I'm not going to draw all the structural isomers of C6H12 for an alkene. What I want is that you people should do that. Okay. So C6H12, you can all draw the chain isomers as well as the position isomers as far as an alkene is concerned. What we will be doing is only drawing the cyclic isomers for the compound. Fine. So let us do that now. So first step is going to be drawing the longest continuous chain. So we have 6 carbons. So the longest continuous ring that you can now make is going to be a 6 carbon ring. So we will be making a cyclohexane as the first isomer with the molecular formula C6H12. Next, we are going to do, we are going to reduce the length of the chain. So we are going to reduce the length of the ring now. So we will along from a 6 carbon ring we will be making a 5 carbon ring, and when we have made a 5 carbon ring, one carbon is free, so that is going to be a CH3, that is going to go as a methyl group as a side chain. So the name of the compound, this becomes methyl cyclopentane. And when we have only one substituent, wherever you're going to be putting it, it is going to be position number 1. So there is going to be only one structure possible as far as cyclopentane will be concerned. Perfectly fine. Next, let us move on to a 4 carbon chain now. When a 4 carbon chain, it is going to be cyclobutane, and 2 carbons are now going to be free. So the 2 carbons, that means we can have 2 methyl groups. 2 methyl groups, let us put at position number 1. So it is going to be 1,1-dimethyl cyclobutane. The next we are going to have it as 1 and 2 position. So it is 1,2-dimethyl cyclobutane. Next we can also have a 1,3 position for it. It is going to be 1,3-dimethyl cyclobutane. Perfectly fine. Is there any more structure we can draw for a cyclobutane? Yes, we can do it. Again, just like we did previously, instead of 2 methyl groups, we can have one ethyl group. So let us do that. So we have the next compound to be ethyl cyclobutane. Alright. Again, this is only one substituent. So wherever you're going to be putting it, it is going to be position number 1. So we can just have one ethyl cyclobutane. Right. Now, when we have a 4 ring, we can also have a 3 ring compound. So let us draw a triangle now. Right. So we have now cyclopropane. Now when we have cyclopropane, the rest of the 3 carbons, they are free. We can draw that as a 3 carbon side chain, that is going to be a propyl group, right? So we have now drawn a propyl group. Now what is going to be the name of this compound? That is also very interesting. Till now what you have done in your nomenclature for the anycyclic compounds was that if the child chain, this has more number of carbon atoms than the parent chain, then this is going to be the principal hydrocarbon, and the cyclic structure, this will become a substituent or the side chain. But here we have both having the same number. The cyclopropane also, this has 3 carbons, and the side chain, that is the propyl chain, this also has 3 carbons. So which of them are you going to consider as the side chain? So please remember, when it is equal also, the parent hydrocarbon is going to be cyclic ring. Okay. So it is only when it is going to be greater number of carbons in the side chain that you will be considering this to be the parent hydrocarbon. I hope this is clear also. So the name of this compound is going to be propyl cyclopropane. Perfectly fine. Now what can we do? Well, this is N-propyl group. We have put position number 1 carbon directly attached to the carbon of the ring. We can also put the secondary carbon to attach directly to the carbon of the ring. So this is going to be the isopropyl group. So isopropyl cyclopropane. Next, instead of the propyl ring, we can have 2 substituents, one being a ethyl and one being a methyl. So we can do that also. So it is going to be ethyl methyl cyclopropane. The next, we can have a ethyl at position number 1 and a methyl at position number 2. So it is going to be 1 ethyl, 2 methyl cyclopropane, and it is always going to be ethyl which is going to be position number 1, because when we have 2 substituents, one which is alphabetically coming first, we will be giving that a lower number, right? So 1 ethyl, 2 methyl cyclopropane. The next structure, what we can do now, this is the only 2 possible structures for ethyl and methyl. So we will be breaking now the ethyl also into a methyl. So we will be getting 3 methyl side chains now. So it is going to be 2 at 1 and 1 at 1. So it is 1, 1, 2 trimethyl cyclopropane, or all the 3 separately at different corners of the triangle. So it is going to be 1, 2, 3 trimethyl cyclopropane. So these are all the possible cyclic isomers with the formula C6H12. And along with this, you can also make the isomers for the alkene C6H12. So there are going to be so many isomers, they are possible. Now, That is something that we will be discussing in the next lecture. But now what I want you to look at is that if this is my carbon number 1, sorry, my structure number 1, this is my structure number 2, what are these? Are these chain isomers or are these position isomers? So there is a number of the parent chain of the ring being different. So 1 and 2, they are going to be 1 and 2, they are going to be chain isomers. All right, so there is a difference in the length of the chain. Now let us look at 1 and 3. Okay, I'm doing with 1 so you can understand the rest or yourself as well. So 1 and 3, again you can see 1 is a 6 carbon ring and 3 is a 4 carbon ring. So again they are going to be chain isomers. What about 1 and if this is 4, all right, this is 5 and this is 6. So it is going to be similar case of 1 with 4, 1 with 5, 1 with 6. Similarly 2 with 3, 2 with 4, 2 with 5, 2 with 6. All are going to be chain isomers. Now what about 3, 4, 5, 6? What are they? Well, all of them, they have the same length of the cyclic ring. All are cyclobutanes. So what are 3, 4, 5, 6? They are differing only in the side chain. All right. So these are all going to be position isomers. Perfectly fine. Now similarly, you have now structure number 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. So if you are going to compare 1 with 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, any of these, they are going to be chain isomers. If you are going to compare 2 with 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, they are going to be chain isomers. Similarly, 3 with 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 4 with 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So these are all going to be chain isomers. But when we are going to compare 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12, all of them, they are having cyclopropane, so all are having a 3-ring structure. So all of these, they are going to be position isomers. I hope this is clear to you people. How we do it for a cyclic compound, how do we do it for a straight chain compound? If you still have any doubts, please do feel free, put your doubts in the comment section. I will be glad to help you people. There is no problem at all in that. We can discuss anything which is going to be difficult for you people. You can put that in the comment section. You can email them to me. I'll just now show you the last slide where we have the email ID also written. So on that email also you can send in your doubts. So but please do not keep your doubts to yourself. So that would be all for this lecture. I hope you have thoroughly understood each and every concept that we have learned. And in the next lecture, we will be carrying on the discussion further on the structural isomerism. So see you again. Have a nice day. God bless you.